and our on-con connections right now. We have a very exciting guest, someone I've been a fan of for years, and it was amazing to meet her, and I'm so happy she's here. Guest, introduce yourself to the world.
Hello, my name is Camilla Zhang. I'm the comics outreach lead at Kickstarter. Essentially, I act as an advisor, a curator, and an advocate for the creative community that uses Kickstarter for comics.
And you got to tell them about that credit sheet, because I'm a huge fan of one of those credits, so you got to tell them what you've worked on as a creator.
Sure. So prior to Kickstarter, I was working at DC Comics and Marvel. At Marvel, I was working in the legal department, primarily dealing with licensing contracts. And that's kind of how I started to understand how comics works as an industry and how it has evolved into an IP giant. And then I worked at DC Comics as an assistant editor to Mark Chiarello, where I edited books like Batman Noël, Batman Death by Design, the entire Before Watchmen series. To be clear, I assistant edited. I was really, really fortunate to have worked with Darwin Cook and Lieber Mayho. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the most basic stuff that I can go over. I can go a little bit deeper, but I don't know if we have time.
We have enough time. There's the good thing about this show is we don't time it anymore. We make time.
Oh, cool.
We have 2 hours. So if you want to tell an anecdotal story, please do. I mean, you know, I'm a huge fan of Batman Noël. So if you have any stories about that, I'm listening.
All right. Well, yeah, Batman Noël was a project that was in the works already when I joined DC Comics. It had a little bit of trouble kind of like getting on schedule, and I basically helped streamline everything so that, you know, the way the process works, and I don't know if like everybody's familiar with editorial, like as far as comics goes, but usually, you know, an artist will start out with line art and then before going into the rendering stage. So a lot of what we were doing was staggering the schedule for like line art and coloring so that all the pieces could be moving while Lee was continuing to finish the book. But yeah, that was one of my first projects as an assistant editor. And then I was brought into the Before Watchmen project that my boss at the time, Mark Chiarello, was working on. And that was such a monster of a project because there were, at the end, it was about 8 books because we had a few one-shots, like the Dollar Bill. I believe it was actually 2 issues, and Moloch was another 2 issues, and we had the Crimson Corsair that was running on the back of all of these. So it was just a lot to deal with, and basically learning how to project manage like all of these different projects was kind of my task to keep everybody, all the moving pieces moving and on board and timely. And, you know, some projects ended up being down to the wire, but a lot of them were just amazing to work on. And I'll never forget that experience, to be honest. My time with Darwin was, you know, I didn't realize how lucky I was at the time. I mean, I did, but then, you know, later on with you know, his passing, I looked back on that and just feel really, really fortunate, but also, you know, I just wish that I had savored it a little bit more.
Yeah, I could say I know a couple people who passed, and you never know when it runs out, and that's the trick of life, and always what makes it very special in life. But I definitely understand that. We have actually a friend of mine who passed away from stomach cancer. His book continues on past him, and it's a very powerful moment to see it now in issue 5, knowing I knew him when he was talking about issue 1.
Yeah, that can be. I mean, I'm sorry for your loss. It's really hard.
We all lost on that one. He was a great guy, but for you too. I'm sure in the industry, the longer you're around, the more we get to see people, get to know them, and then lose them. So it is a bittersweet moment. But at least you got to hang out with some of the best, man.
Yeah. I was definitely starstruck, but the thing about stars is that you can't act like they're, stars. You just got to be a human.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? But I mean, an amazing career. Now you're with Kickstarter, which is a great company. It's one of those things, and I give you guys a lot of credit. I'll say this officially, and I've been saying it every week. Kickstarter said, hey, pencil's not down. You creators keep creating. We're still here. The lights are still on. And your headquarters are in New York. So I have to ask, are you guys okay? Is everything going okay up there?
Yeah, things are okay. We're all quarantined. All of us are working from home. So that's why you see my background. So yeah, we're doing okay right now, and projects are down, but backings are still steady, and I feel that really speaks to the power of people who love Kickstarter. Our backer community, they understand what it takes to put a project out, to put blood, sweat, and tears into a creative work. They understand the value of that, and they also understand that art is labor, and labor needs to be paid. So I think that things will be on the upswing, like as people start to figure out what works and what doesn't work. A lot of us thought that this was going to be a temporary thing, like maybe a month maximum, but now it is becoming the reality. And like all things, there are growing pains, and there's going to be panic occasionally, but I think that eventually people figure things out. We all know that the retail aspect of things has been it has needed to evolve for a long time, and there are a lot of strong retailers out there who have turned their comic shops into community hubs. And have really revitalized their businesses and are learning how to use the internet and social media to keep those communities alive and keep those communities engaged with the comics that they're selling. So, I think that while there are so many struggles and crises going on, humans are adaptable and we rise to the challenge.
Ain't that the truth? And I got to say it, and I say this all the time when people talk badly about any crowdfunding platform, including Kickstarter. You guys make our dreams come true. There's no reason that it's your fault. It's always creators. If we're not getting the backing we need, that's on us. And I advocate for a lot of indie creators, and I'm like, don't blame a crowdfunding platform. They do the best thing. You guys change the industry for the better. And I mean, even Todd McFarlane recently, and it won't be on the show because he didn't ask me. I'm hurt, but Todd's busy. He might not get around to me. But he had made $1 million on Kickstarter and said he was going to Kickstarter because he was tired of the regular avenue and he loved what you guys did. And I wanted to just echo that. I really love what you did, and thank you. Because I don't think you guys get told thank you. Every message I get from you guys, and I talk to you in the background if I have a problem, it's always with a thank you. Because I always understand the work that you guys have done and how you've changed comic books. Without you guys, we wouldn't be where we are today. So thank you for that.
I will accept it on behalf of the company.
Very cool. All right. So this is Kickstarter Plus. Our guest today knows what's going on. But for those of you guys tuning in, we're going to go over the rules. So what is Kickstarter Pause? Well, it's when a guest sits down to watch all the crowdfunding videos we are advocating for and hits pause on the video when their interest is lost in the video. This is a fun way to teach creators about attention spans and what works and does not work in the video. Want to be a guest? Have a crowdfunding campaign? Comment below. All right. So, we do have some Indiegogo's. I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's totally fine.
Creators use it. I don't like Indiegogo. I know you're supposed to like both. I like your platform better.
Well,
and I'm not just saying that because you're here. I actually say it every week. Indiegogo is a good idea, but you guys, just the way that you integrated the ability for people to follow each other is what is just groundbreaking. And I love those 3 new questions. Whoever came up with those 3 new questions, really cool idea. And you'll see.
Yeah, it's like it's basically, if people don't know, it's the 3 blocks of text that appear under the video.
Yeah, and it really. I'll show it. I know mine has it, so I'll show my Kickstarter so you guys can see it. But here we go. This is Starlight issue 1. It's an ex-children superheroes story, and we're gonna check it out. And remember, if you want to pause, just pause and we'll talk about what made you lose your interest. And here we go. If it'll play.
Robert, just really quickly, when I hit pause, like I just click on it, or?
Oh, no, just tell me pause.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, for me, I'm just trying to say sometimes. All right, we're going to go quickly over here, and I'm going to see what that is, but we'll play it from here, from the source.
You remember the Ultra Kids, that high-flying superpower duo of Mighty Boy and the Melter. Remember their kids' superhero adventures? Well, of course not. There was never any such thing. We just made that up. Remember the real kid superhero teams? You ever wonder what happened to them when they started to get older? What would happen to them when they got to like puberty, when they became teenagers? Did they become teen superheroes? Did they go on to become adult superheroes? Probably not. Probably. Using our socio-cultural imagination, they probably wound up like most child stars, pill-popping, angst-ridden, semi-suicidal nut jobs with a good chance of being between 18 and 25 and doing 25 to 30.
I'm sorry, I got to pause for a second.
Starlight is a 7-issue comic.
There we go. What's going on?
Now, actually, I advise these folks, these creators. So the thing is, there are multiple parts of the, I never want to step on too many toes, especially when the video's already been done, because oftentimes the creator, will have made the video and it's just too late to like make edits. But if I had the opportunity to come in at the script stage of when they started kind of like crafting the dialogue behind, like, the voiceover, I would have said like to kind of just get to the point a little bit faster. There's definitely like, this is the issue I think a lot of creators have, is that they want to make the video itself almost like a mini movie or like a mini doc. But when it comes to Kickstarter, it's really got to be more like an infomercial. It's really just got to be more informative than weaving together a narrative. It's the approach to try to make it more like a movie preview doesn't always translate very well. And, sarcasm and irony can work in small doses, especially if it's towards the end of a video. But like when it's the beginning, I think for me as a backer and a viewer, like I want to know exactly what the story is about. I don't really need narrative frills. Does that make sense?
It actually does. We've seen this on the program. This is like been an ongoing for a while. And all the people who've shown up are like, all right, this is just too, and I say it all the time. I have horrible ADHD. You have to catch me right away. If you had a good enough art, I might look through your Kickstarter the rest of the way. But if you didn't have the good art in the video, I'm probably lost my interest completely and on my way out. And I stress that to creators, and especially the ones who have these new trailers. Like you said, it's a movie, but it's not a movie. I don't need to see PG. I don't need to see the following is approved. That's stuff I don't like because, again, my attention span. And we're all in the world. So, you don't want to do it. But I mean, the art was good on this, and I want to congratulate them. They finally hit their goal. They didn't have their goal last week. So, it's great team, great people, but like you said, wrap it up quicker. How long do you think a Kickstarter video should be actually?
Sorry, go ahead. It really, we say the best practice is to make it under 2 minutes. Okay. And I usually like to, and maybe this is something that you'd rather me go towards the end, but I like to get in with creators from the very beginning, before they put together a video, like hit me with the script. What are the story beats? That's what I would have hoped for this particular creator who I coached. But, I think at that point they had already made the video and then there's just not enough time to get all the edits in. And, I think it was a good video for what it was worth. It just needed a faster pacing. It just needed to get kind of to the point a little bit quicker.
And Eric, we can watch it when yours goes live. So we got some comments. He said, same thing. I don't think I'm interested in the video, but I really like the art. And sometimes, you know, you get lucky enough that the art itself can draw people in, but don't count on that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it could turn off a potential backer. So we're going to move on to our next one, which is Dusk versus Cheerleader Karate School. So here we go. See the promo thing I was talking about. Now I'm going to be quiet, but that always bugs me.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, children of the interwebs out there. I'm here to chat with you a bit about an effort to revamp and revitalize Cheerleader Karate School and how you can help with that. Now, I partnered with David Dalby, Denton, Texas-based, hardworking, self-published creator, to have my leading ladies cross over with the flagship character from his series, and Dusk. The characters meet an adventure that sees them tackle some supernatural shenanigans brought forth by a young girl who has been suffering at the hands of an abusive boyfriend. It's a great story with great art that just needs to help over the finish line to be published both.
And
so I also worked with this creator. You know, again, the video had already been created at the time that I was able to get in touch with him. So it was a little bit too late to go back and redo things. For the next campaign that these folks do, I would definitely suggest kind of taking a step back and really enunciating a little bit more and going slower. So the narrator has a bit of a issue kind of going a little bit too fast. And like, I think for me, the preview thing doesn't work. It's not really necessary. It eats into the seconds that you have to pull a backer in. And like I said, you know, you really want it to be under 2 minutes. And this one just hits right over, I think, 2 minutes.
Yeah, 2:03.
And I think that would have worked a little bit better here was if you showed more of the art as a slideshow with the voiceover, just like kind of in the first one we saw. There was just art and VO. You can show your face towards the end when you want to introduce yourself, but I think, like you said before, it's comics readers really want to see the art, right? So if they're going to get pulled into the visuals, and I think that while trying to make it personal is a good idea, I don't think it's maybe necessarily what you want to start with, because you kind of want to just get into, this is what Dusk and Cheerleader Karate School. I'm sorry, I totally blanked on the name, but like, Cheerleader Karate School. Like, what is it about? And this is kind of like what I talk about with a lot of creators is hierarchy of information matters. So unless you are a Todd McFarlane or a Scott Snyder or some very big name in the industry, most people are not going to care who you are. They want to know what you're making first. They want to know what the story is about. So even in the first one, like we saw, they should have said right immediately, have you ever wondered what it would be like to be a child superhero and what would happen after that? Like that's basically what they were trying to say, but they took a very long time to say that.
Yeah, they didn't do the elevator pitch.
They kind of had a sort of narrative that was cheeky, but like a little bit sarcastic, which it can be great for like a joke if you're doing stand-up comedy or whatnot, but like for comics, I think that people want that log line immediately. So I'm always talking to creators about log lines and how that's basically the subtitle. Like you need to have that in this. Your log line is basically your subtitle of a project, and it's got to be detailed enough and specific enough, but like short, which can be. It's such a hard skill to practice and to hone, but it is very, very necessary.
Yeah, so. Elevated pitches are so important because sometimes you don't have all the time in the world, and with the Kickstarter video you don't. And you can see he's trying to talk really fast, and that comes from knowing that you have 2 minutes and you have to get everything in, and no one understands you. You're talking so quickly that people can't absorb, and they actually don't know why you're talking so fast, and that could be off-putting too. So, but the guy looks energetic, and I appreciate that. Any creator who shows up with that energy, I will look through their stuff. They've won me over.
Yeah, it's very clear that he's passionate about the project, and I think that like I did watch the video till the end when I was advising, but like again, it was already made. There's not many changes you can implement at that point. But you know, you can bring the same passion and energy to a video without necessarily speaking so fast, and you can also introduce yourself later.
Yeah, unless you have a point, and I always say that because some projects, they have a bigger point, and if you're trying to talk about a bigger point, I understand that. But if you're the narrator, roll that the art, you know, it's like the old saying, roll that beautiful bean footage. And that's really what you want to do. You want to show it off.
Yeah.
This is Modern God, and number one, a fantasy action one-shot comic. So let's check this out.
Hey everyone, I'm Frank Martin, writer and creator of Modern Testament.
And I'm Braden Cox, the writer and creator of Reclaiming Godhood.
Both of our series have a lot in common. They were both our first books and originally came out at the same time with the same publisher, but the similarities go deeper than that.
Although they focus on different ancient mythologies, Modern Testament and Reclaiming Godhood are about bringing those mythologies into a modern society and seeing how those universal themes are still relevant today.
Reclaiming Godhood focuses on the Roman god Jupiter as he seeks to answer prayers and protect humanity in the modern world. Modern Testament does the same with biblical mythology as it strives to reinvent ancient beings for a new age.
Can you pause?
Combining the two ideas was seamless, as Jupiter faces a trio of new...
There we go.
That bit right there about like what Modern Testament and Reclaiming Godhood, like right, that those like past 5 seconds, I feel like that needed to be way earlier. Like the art, like again, like they are trying to do this kind of like movie preview type thing. I think that pause between the last question and like the blackout, the fade out, was just a little bit too long. The fade out doesn't need to last too long. Like, remember, you're not creating a narrative film here. You're really just, it's a pitch video. It needs to be, you know, it's information. It's not a story. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. And I also, if you have to read from a screen, that means you haven't practiced and rehearsed. You should not be reading from the screen. You should have said it so many times that you can have it in front of you and still know how to follow along because you've practiced it. And you can tell that he hasn't practiced it, and that uncomfortableness can set someone off in their head. Well, why does he look uncomfortable talking about it? Shouldn't, you know? So I tell people that, like, I go through 20 to 40 takes before I'm done with a video when we're not live, you know? And this is an opportunity where you're not live. I love the energy again. I love the fact that the guy, even though he's reading off the screen, he's serious. And I like that about it. You know, I do appreciate someone who takes the craft seriously. And I mean, being religious, that's a harder sell, definitely, because you're already entering a realm where people might not want to back it.
That might be true, but I think that when you're a creator, it's not so much about like, quote unquote, like, not to use the biblical terms again, or like religion, but like you're not trying to convert somebody, right? You're most likely going to be speaking to people who are already interested in that kind of stuff. Now, I really did like what they did with kind of explaining what the Modern Testament and Reclaiming Godhood was about. And I don't really mind it when somebody is reading from a screen, because I think that so many creators have this fear about like, oh, well, it has to be perfect. You know, honestly, a video doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to give information. Does that make sense? Like, it certainly benefits you if it looks more polished and more professional, but I also don't want that to be a hindrance from creators feeling like they have to have everything perfect. Because sometimes things don't need to be perfect.
Oh, I completely agree. And even when it comes to music, first off, I hate the fact when people use copyrighted music. I'm instantly already upset when I hear it. We had trouble with our YouTube channel a few years ago when everyone kept using copyright material, but YouTube really cracked down on a lot of people, so that stopped happening. But if you're going to use music, have it matter. And again, you're losing me because now I'm listening to something and I have to read. Why am I reading on a screen moving? And, you know, you just don't want that disconnect. So just be more genuine. Like you said, less sizzle, more steak. Stop trying to give too much sizzle. And we got, and this is books I like. And I'm a children's book creator, so I'm always excited to see people creating books about children and using this as an avenue to invite younger readers. So this is Super Cats Halloween, a children's comic book series. So here we go.
Hi, I'm Gil Tucson. I'm the writer and creator of Super Cats Halloween. This is a really fun children's picture book and comic book with artwork by Angela Odling of the fantastic series Detached. It is a story about relying on your friends when things are rough and never being afraid to ask for help in times of need. I think this is a message that's really timely with everything that's going on right now, and I'm excited to bring it to you in the form of this kids book / comic. Super Cats books are made for kids just learning to read. I would say the age range is about 0 to 7 years old, pre-K.
Pause. I don't know if it's because the audio or like it's sort of like the video's like kind of choppy, and I don't know if it's because of our internet connection, but it's certainly like it was really hard to understand him. And I also think that I think that he needed to write a script out, because from what I am hearing, it sounds like it's a little bit more off the cuff as opposed to like practiced and rehearsed. And you know, I think speaking off the cuff can be fine if you're doing some sort of things like towards the end, but the elevator pitch, the log line has to be, you know, straightforward and kind of seamless. Like you said, like there's certain things that you want to have rehearsed for a while, and that's the log line. So Super Cats is for readers age this to age that, and it's about blah 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 blah. From right now, the only thing I understand is that it's a children's book, and I think he mentioned something about that it's something about like helping each other. I can't. It was. I think the audio was.
Yeah, at the very beginning, he had said something that this is the perfect time for us to learn about helping each other, and he had kind of meant to that. And he's a friend of mine, so I know him. He's a passionate guy again. But I can see the point, and I did even tell. I think he was on the show, and I told him the one thing I thought about his videos. He looked a little nervous when he was filming it, and he had said, "I'm not too comfortable with the public speaking yet, because it does take time to do these videos and get used to being in the spotlight."
Yeah, and I think that if you're not comfortable showing your face, you can do a VO. You can just have it focus on the art, or like still pictures. Like you can do like a slideshow type of thing with just VO if you're not comfortable showing your face in front of the camera. Yeah, I feel like the project and the message is very appropriate for the time and great and beautiful, frankly, but it was just more like I wasn't quite understanding what he was saying immediately.
Yeah, that can be a problem. I do apologize for the choppiness. That's just, unfortunately, StreamYard. StreamYard's been having problems, and it's just because we're all home. We're all via the internet. So That was a little, especially the ones where people are talking. If you start to notice and you're having trouble hearing them, because the audio is not great in that to begin with, you start looking at them, it starts throwing your mind. Why does it look off sync? And all you can think about is it's not syncing right.
Yeah. It can be. That's why sometimes VO works better. Then you don't have to worry about the syncing problem. Before we start this video, I just want to say, like, I don't know if Indiegogo has outreach leads that offer advice, but anybody, if you're doing a crowdfunding campaign, your main project image, it really hurts you when it's so text heavy. It's too text heavy. The way that, people expect things to look a certain way when they are used to looking at things a certain way. So things are templated for a reason, right? So when you look at Kickstarter, you see the title, you see the subtitle, you see a main project image, and below that you see a bunch of text. The image should be just the image. It does not need text, because the text should be in the subtitle and in the project page. But this is just immediately something that kind of turns me off a little bit.
Oh, then you're going to hate this even more.
Okay.
We don't have a video for it. There is no video. This is just an image. This is all we have to represent this today.
I thought we were watching videos today.
Well, we advocate for everyone. We don't require someone to have a video to advocate for them. We skip over it. We're just going to mention the name and then that's it. What do you think of Kickstarters or any crowdfunding that doesn't put a video? Is that a huge mistake?
It's a missed opportunity for sure, because some people are going to just look at the project title and subtitle and go straight into reading. But, oftentimes it's like, for example, I don't really go to Google for recipes anymore. I just go straight to YouTube because I just want to see how the things get made, right? So, like, some people like to digest information like a tweet. They would just want to just read something really quickly and understand it. But when it comes to project pages, people expect, at the very least, a full bleed dynamic image.
Yeah.
Some guy in a hoodie who's like kind of gray, kind of nocturnal looking, maybe a vampire with guns. I mean, urban fantasy. Okay, I get it. Urban fantasy, but that's not enough. Okay, a sci-fi action roller coaster of a ride with a scientific twist on classic horror monsters. When the U.S. military, I don't need that.
Yeah.
That's not even specific enough. Like, roller coaster is, a lot of people use that, right? That's kind of it's vague, but it's also a little overused. Scientific twist, also, like, twist itself is such a overused term when it comes to pitching. And classic horror twist on classic horror monsters. I like that classic horror monsters is a bit more detailed, like it's more specific. So I would have gotten rid of that entire intro and gone straight into, when the U.S. military hired Syntech to create a pack of werewolf super soldiers, they expected a high-trained killing unit. What they didn't expect. So, like, that, those two sentences need to be condensed for sure. So, so pack of werewolves, when they didn't expect to create was Marek Halfman, how he now haunts those responsible for his transformation. So I think that this is sort of like Weapon X meets horror monsters, classic horror monsters, right? So, like, that would have been a great log line especially for people who are already familiar with comics. But as it stands, it's a little too wordy, and it doesn't get to the point quick enough, in my opinion.
You know what bothers me? The lettering. Well, I can't get past the fact the lettering has that dash in it. This is your promotional piece, and you have dash between monster. You have dash between soldiers. This is not a book report. This is your advertiser. Nike doesn't release things like this, And there's a reason it looks a little unprofessional. And now you instantly in your mind. And unfortunately, I've reached out to the creator, and I told him, I said, hey, Justin, when I go to your page, because there is supposedly a video, I go to hit the video, and it says video can't be played. It's unavailable. So now instantly I'm like, well, what did you do to get banned on YouTube? This is just a missed opportunity, I think.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel bad for him, but sometimes you can take the horse to water. You know, and I feel bad because, you know, there is a good passion in this. They had a nice setup for this. They do show good art. Like the art, it's pretty amazing. But again, with a video, I could have known more. And without a video, now I'm left wondering, well, why didn't you fix the video? Why didn't you fix the problem? So, all right. So now I'm nervous because this is my book. So now this is nerve wracking. I'm like, and especially because some of the things you said already, I'm like, oh, this is not going to go well.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
No. I mean, it's what it is. I mean, I'm a big boy. I put everyone else through it. So now I guess it's just my turn. I do want to say that, you know, be gentle.
Okay.
All right, so here's my Cat Dad and Supermom, the award-winning All Readers Tale that teaches, and you'll like the tagline, that teaches morals with farts.
Oh, that's cute. I love that.
And allowing us to introduce you to Cat Dad and Supermom, the award-winning Farts with Morals storytelling awesome adventure that people seem to love. And we could keep going that way. We could use words that could try to get you to be excited and convinced to buy it, but I'd rather just be honest with you. I'd rather be humble with you and tell you why I created the story. You see that little boy over my shoulder, right over there, and the other side, Supermom, and the big elephant that farts. All of that is based on my boy. He's a special needs 5-year-old who I love with all my heart. And he has made me a better boy that taught me what a relation of love is. So if this story is about him, the standard had to be higher. That's why I got one of the best artists in the world, in Raheel Mohsin. I got Chuck Pinault, who has done such great work as an editor and as a writer himself, to be part of this. Both of them became co-creators because of how much passion went into this. It was about passion for creating a top-notch story that was meant to entertain your entire family. And I think we did that. The rest, they're all keywords. They're all ways to convince you to do it. Truthfully, this is a story that...
I actually kind of want to throw this back at you and say, what would you have done differently knowing what you know now?
See, for this one, I honestly wanted to do something unique and different. I kind of wanted to challenge the narrative because I do this show all the time. And I always talk about these keywords and all that. And this was a passion project for me that a lot of people, and a little backstory, I create other books that are more oriented. And this was me becoming a children's creator, and people had trouble with that. And I felt like I had to explain why this book was different. I wasn't just making a kid's book. It was about my son, who needs, beautiful little kid who comes around with me. And I wanted to introduce all people. Because, I mean, right now in our culture, in comic book culture, we're not inviting younger readers into it. So I have to win parents over. It's the hardest thing because, at least for me at Comic Cons, I do think that we don't spend money on children. I see it all the time. So I needed to convince the parents that this was also something that they could enjoy. And we've done the last Kickstarter we did that didn't go well. We had that whole experience where it was the art and all that. And people, again, got, because it was that disconnect of, well, wait, because I write under a different name. For this, it's Robert Gregory. For my other, it was Rob Anderson. So it was a disconnect. And I felt like I had to heal that disconnect. And like, yes, both. But I mean, listening to you, I now feel like maybe I could have thrown some more graphics on the screen.
I definitely think that more graphics on the screen would have been a little bit more helpful into immersing readers into your world. That's one thing that you always want to keep in mind. You want to immediately put them into the world. And also, I think that you want to approach every project as if no one knows anything about you or what you've done in the past. And, you know, I think that we as creators sometimes, you know, because I'm a creator myself, I was in the Top Cow Talent Hunt I was a Top Cow Talent Hunt runner-up like a couple of years ago, and I still work on comics and prose. So like I understand the sort of self-deprecation that we are often immediately drawn to, because like we it's uncomfortable to talk big about yourself sometimes, you know, like unless you have a huge ego and it's no problem, it's fine. But most of us are a little bit like, oh, like put in some of that self-deprecating humor so that like, you know, maybe it's because you don't want to like put expectations too high, or like it's just it's like a way to make you feel more like you're not being too braggy or something like that. But I think that first off, the main project image would be better if it was not a composite of several, but a whole like full bleed shot, you know? I always advise that because a lot of things appear as thumbnails on the Kickstarter page, like whether it's under the recommendation engine or like, you know, the carousels that appear on the different kind of categories, like art for kids or action and adventure. And when things are a thumbnail, you can't read everything, and things get very jumbled when they're small. So you need it, like right here, stop for a second. If you had cropped this image, like this would have been totally fine. You know, without the lettering on the back, a full like action shot. That's what I would have wanted to see.
And that makes sense. And I do stress this to everyone. You can make changes until the very last day. And I will make some changes based on the feedback I'm getting today. And even with my video, a lot of people say, well, once you make a video, I make videos the entire project because I figure the first wave, they either liked it or they didn't. The second wave, I try something new. Pivot, do something different.
Yeah.
You know, try to encourage a different base. So I'm going to take everything you said very much to heart, because I could always, even if I like the audio track on that, I can download the audio track and just play it and allow me to show all the images.
Yep. And I think that going straight into what the book is about is more important than explaining why. So you always want to start with the what before the why. This is why I'm always talking about hierarchies of information. That's the log line. Cat Dad and Super Mom is about blah, 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 blah. I created it because I have a special needs son. He inspires me every day. I wanted to create a story for parents who have special needs children or people who just want to understand what it's like to have a special needs child, et cetera, you know, and I also wanted to make people laugh with fart jokes because I love them, you know, things like that, that's under a minute. That might have taken me 30 seconds to say. And that's kind of the crux of what you're trying to say too, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. The one thing I don't want to put out there is that it doesn't really focus on his special needs too much. That is just who he is. And I like to be honest about that, but I don't expect sympathy for it. It's just, I feel like if I don't mention it, I'm being dishonest about my son, and it's somehow ashamed of him. He is a special needs kid, but he's wonderful. And he's gone to over 100 cons in his life already. He's got more cons than, and he goes behind the table. He's actually signed the books because he's his books. So yeah, it's been a beautiful project. So, and it's funny because you're saying that, and that's more the video I made over here, but it was a little longer.
Thank you for making.
I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but you could see there are different images. I used a different background. So there was that in this. So the minute you said that, I was like, I thought when we were on the show, I'm like, damn, I didn't do that in my video. I didn't give the pitch. I didn't start off with the pitch something. And it goes to show you, despite knowing better, sometimes we forget when we get caught up in our own creative.
Oh, absolutely. That's why it's so important to get people's feedback, like somebody else's feedback beyond your own. And also, I think what helps if you don't have another person to bounce ideas off of is to write down literally what, then why. So like constantly ask yourself, what is this about? And why did I make it? You know?
That makes sense. And I will take everything you said to heart, and I appreciate it, because this is how we learn from each other. And even me doing this show every week, when it's your own thing, it's very easy to get lost in it.
Yeah.
Because I live by the 2 minutes. You saw it's a minute and 50 seconds, I think my video was. I don't like going over 2 minutes. I hate going over a minute. But, you know, we want to get everything out, and you kind of try to do it like when you're at your table. But like you said, I forgot to do a simple thing. I didn't invite the new readers. Everyone has to know who I am for that video to land. If you don't know me well enough, the video won't land the way I want it to. So
Yep.
I appreciate that. Some great feedback. I am happy about the fact we picked Mother's Day to end the actual thing because of
Aww.
Cat Dad and Supermom. Yeah. So I'm pretty happy about that. And thank you for the feedback. That was I got some work to do.
Okay.
All right. And this is Terracoma. This is from our friend Frank James Bailey. We're going to check him out now. Oh, yeah, I forgot. For some reason, it's not playing from here. I think it's just the browser's acting funny.
Sure.
So we'll play from Kickstarter.
This is Turkana.
Oh boy. This is again one of those things about trying to make it seem like an action movie preview. Also, this is Turkana, like this is that kind of phrase is something you would say after you've explained something, like in a world where this and that and superpowered teenagers, la 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 la, this happens. This is Turkana. You know, like that lands a lot better after you've explained what it actually is. Yeah, it's too
much of a trailer. They're trying too hard to be a trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is
it needs
that's a real thing, you know, you gotta worry about that. And also, you know what, I hate when it starts loud. It instantly puts me in fright or flight, you know?
Okay, so when I'm looking at the subtitle, female superhero Turkana and her friend Brittany fight crime, it's you have something there with like crime fighting and then a mind controlling villain. So it's like, but what else is there? You know, is this I'm trying to remember the villain's name, but right now all I can say is David Tennant. Is it like Jessica Jones, like fighting David Tennant?
I know Mr. Purple, but he actually has a real name in the story. They don't actually call him Mr. Purple. I'm gonna have to look it up now. You're talking about
I think it's
Jones, right?
Yeah.
Let me
but
see.
Like it's like kill something, Kilgrave.
Kilgrave, yes.
Yeah, Kilgrave. Yeah. Is this like Jessica Jones fighting Kilgrave? Like that's kind of how this seems to me, because like he can mind control, and then there's a superhero with her friend who fights crime. But what makes it different? Like, what is this that makes it? It's right now that subtitle's too vague. I don't understand. There's something missing. There's a hook missing there.
Yeah, it has to be something like female superhero Turkana and her best friend Brittany try to fight against the evil madman Burmese who can control their minds. Will they survive? It has to have that peril element. It has to have this stakes, and there's no stakes in that title.
Well, yeah, I mean, even then, it's sort of like I've seen a lot of comics that are like superhero women who, like, we've seen that story before. What makes this one different? You know?
It's like the zombie, when we saw the influx of all the zombie books suddenly 4 years. Yeah, it's really, you know, like on Kickstarter, for example, I see a lot of Viking comics, and they're cool. The art's usually really gorgeous, but sometimes I see the subtitle, I'm like, okay, so how is this going to be different from the other Viking comic that I just saw? You know, like when I'm teaching log lines, you know, first of all, names usually don't matter. It's not so much of a name, but more of like what they do. So if it's a superhero, what kind of powers do they have? You know, you've already told me that the villain has mind control powers, but what makes Turkana a superhero? Like, what are her powers? Electricity powers? It looks like maybe she has electricity powers. It looks like her best friend might be a martial artist. But it's like, and what's specific about this story? Does the villain try to mind control one friend and pit that friend against the other? You know, like, and then they have to like
weigh that, like the main character has to weigh her friendship. You know, what's the conflict besides the villain? You know, like what does the protagonist or protagonists, what do they have to overcome to get from point A to point B? Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. I understand completely what you're saying. And, you know, again, it's that pitch line. It's that, like you said, the log line. It has to matter. It has to resonate. It's like your tuning fork for your fandom.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get them at the right frequency, or they're going to, like you said, you can very easily look at this and be like, I've heard this story. Okay, best friends, gotcha. I'm moving on.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And, you know, you always play with your log lines. And I always tell this, you'll know what works when you go to a show and you're talking to complete strangers. The strangers who stop, that's a log line that works. That's how I know for mine, teach morals with farts. That's get a lot of people to stop and go, what? What did you just say? And you want that moment because now they're asking you the question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, no video, but this, remember I told you about the project of our friend who passed away? That's kind of why the videos aren't being done, because he's passed away. So it is a choice not to do videos in this regard, because he's not here to be the voice for it. So we always do talk about this Into the Suck number 5, funded in 3.5 hours. So doing great. Quick look at it before we move on. For some reason the link went the wrong place. I got to fix that later. We'll look. I'll try to call it up when we move on to the next thing. This is new to me. I haven't seen this one yet. This is Driver 8, and we're gonna watch it together for the first time. This just came out. So let's see, Driver 8. There it is, loading. There we go.
A single note starts a concerto. A tiny pebble starts an avalanche. Thus it is with all things. The smallest thing leads to the largest. And so it shall be, day in and day out. Until
I'm sorry.
the last day.
I gotta pause.
Good.
Sorry, the visuals are really interesting. Again, this is trying to be a little bit like a movie preview by showing the logo. Like, the thing is with these videos, every second counts. You can't afford to like do a flashy thing with a logo as an introduction and then go into like a narrative about like the butterfly effect, essentially, you know, because once you've established that this butterfly effect exists, talk about how this applies to the story itself. It's taking too long to get to the point. And I think that's kind of like the issue that a lot of project videos face, is that, like, you know, it really doesn't take as long as you think to draw someone in. You know, you don't have to go through these like very careful like logo flash and then the mysterious music and then sort of like these questions that you pose to the audience, or like sort of like not necessarily questions, but maybe scenarios that you pose to the audience. You don't need as long as you think you need for that kind of thing. You can have it if you want, but generally speaking, unless you are launching an actual publishing company, you don't need that logo in the beginning, you know?
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I completely agree. And I've said it. And I really think, honestly, this has a lot more to do with an outside company making these videos now. At the end of it, I see the little name and it seems they're all doing it because they're, you know, what's the best thing about a marketer? They're great at marketing themselves because you paid them to do a job.
Right.
And people forget that. A marketer's job is to convince you that they're worth hiring in the first place. So you have to be mindful of that. And I've seen this creep up in the last I don't know if you watch a lot of videos. I'm sure you do. You see the trends go in and out. And this is a trend. Make it look like a movie trailer. No, don't make it.
Don't.
Yeah. I'm with you 100%. I completely agree. So this is the Into the Suck. I got the link to work, and I'm doing amazing stuff. $9,000. So the money's still there, guys. It's Kickstarter's alive and well. If you're a creator, now is a great time to kickstart. There's less competition too.
That's true. There's less projects on, so now's the time if you have it. But also prepare. Like, I think that a big mistake that a lot of creators make is like, if I build it, they will come. But then again, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? So like, you have to think about your project, your career as a comics creator. It's not going to, you put it on Kickstarter and then all the money's going to come and all the backers are going to come. That's not how it works. That's not how it works anywhere. And so I want to say, like, now is a good time to launch, but also that doesn't mean just launch tomorrow without preparing anything, right? Like, you want to take the time to put things together. You want to take the time to seed information, because if you launch without preparing, you're not as likely to succeed. And so I just want to encourage all the creators out there to, be inspired, of course, to like, hey, if there's not a lot of projects on Kickstarter, maybe now's a good time for me to put it up there. But at the same time, like, don't rush into anything, like, take the time you need to get all of your ducks in a row, plan the social media posts, plan how many emails you're going to be sending out, while I'm here, I'll actually say, email outreach is usually a lot better and high performing than social media outreach. Sometimes you might get a lot of likes or retweets, but that doesn't always translate into backers, because you need to engage with your audience. If you have not engaged, then you're not going to get that follow through. You're not going to get that conversion, and so put a little bit more effort into personalizing emails and outreach. That really, really helps. That goes a long way.
Yeah, I was one of the idiots who thought email lists didn't work, and I didn't work on them as I should have. And I was also worried about spam laws. I'm sure you guys had been talking about their new spam laws they were creating. So I was kind of watching to see what happened with that. Nothing happened with it because the big companies didn't want anything to change. And I missed out on 2 years of building a great email list. Don't be like me. Don't be stupid.
Oh, build that email list as soon as you can. Yeah, for sure.
And I give a lot of credit for Kickstarter for their new initiative where they're telling people not to sell their Kickstarter, their email lists, and not to give private information away.
Yes, do not. That's a violation of privacy.
Thank you for doing that, because there's always been whispers that creators do that and they trade lists and then they're selling lists. And I've always stayed away from it because it's unethical. And I'm glad you guys took a stand, because now no one can say, well, no one's against it. No, Kickstarter specifically, I can't access my backer report without having to check now 3 boxes. And I'm happy to check all 3 of those boxes because I know you're protecting my information. And I'm a super backer. So I'm sure, because I get these weird emails. I'm like, how did they get it? I'm an advocate, but I remember who I sign up for. Random people. And I'm like, how did they get my email? Now, and
well, I'll also say this, as a creator, you're kicking yourself, like, you're shooting yourself in the foot, essentially, if you are going to be trading information, because the success of Kickstarter, the success of Kickstarter creators is built on backer trust. And when you break that trust, you are going to hurt your future chances of success. And so that's another, like, sometimes people really need incentive to say, well, what does this have to do with me? Like, what's in it for me if I protect my backer information? Well, that's in it. That's what's in it for you. That trust, that, like, you have to. Kickstarter is not a store. However, when you are reaching backers, you have to treat them like customers in some way, because like, you are building a reputation for yourself. And if you hurt your own reputation, you're going to be hurting your success, your future success.
And that's awesome advice. And you guys, I hope you're listening. I might actually repost this as just a tutorial, because you're giving out such great information. And I think people need to hear it and hear it over again. So I can never say this name, so I'm not even going to try.
Terra Olympus. There
we go. Yeah, I'm dyslexic, so the minute I try saying it, it's Terry's mad or something. So here we go.
Oh, I didn't even see that the words on the bottom.
They didn't space it well. We could talk over it, actually, because there's no one talking. That was one of the first things I said, is that the bar is in the way. So now it's in the way again.
Yeah.
I tried to make it a little bigger to make it easier to read. I lose it right away because I don't like.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, even if you don't like the sound of your own voice, like maybe you can ask a friend to do the voiceover. I'm not always opposed to videos that will kind of take the POV of a character, but again, you're 50 seconds in and I still don't understand what this comic is about. You know, like I can get a sense it's a sci-fi story, there's a crash, but like 50 seconds in, what is this, gravity? You know, like she lost in space now, like you don't have a lot of time to capture someone's attention. And like, again, this is not a short film. This like project video should not be treated like a short film unless like, you know, this is a Kickstarter for an actual short film. You know, it's
somebody that they thought this was a motion comic. We actually went in and went to the Kickstarter to make sure it wasn't a motion comic, and it wasn't. It was regular comics. So you're absolutely right. It can be misleading.
Yeah, I think that project video is not another it is a creative piece, but it is not a narrative piece. You know, like a project, the advice that I give as comics outreach lead will definitely be different from, like, for example, my colleague, Elise McCabe. She heads up narrative film. So like the advice that she gives to filmmakers may be different from what I say, right? Maybe filmmaker campaigns need to read more like a narrative, need to be more like a movie preview. But for comics, it's different because, you know, they're expecting to know what this thing is about. They need information before you're not trying to entertain, you are trying to inform people.
And also win them over. Don't forget that, guys. This is about winning them on to not necessarily backing, and I say this, and maybe you'll disagree with me, but getting them to read the rest of the page.
Yeah.
Invest their time and see what else is going on with you. So you don't have to make the sale right away, but you got to be part of the conversation right away.
Yeah. You
got to get them interested in you. So that's what you have to try to do. And that's just my opinion on it. As always, I could be wrong.
Well, that's what my opinion is, just like, as a backer, this is what I want to know.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, and I'm a super backer. So when I'm watching this, I've backed over, I don't even know how many. I'll check while we play the next video, but I think I'm at 400 Kickstarters.
Wow.
So, you know, and I read a lot of these books, and something like this would turn me off just because, like you said, I don't know. And the pitch line, Earth is a distant memory, and the remembrance of humanity now lives aboard a space station, Terra Olympic, whatever that word is.
Okay.
What secret does it hold? I feel like I've seen this. Like you said, I don't feel like there's something new. So now I'm afraid it's just going to be someone watching a movie going, I could make that.
Right.
And I'm not sure that they can. And when I watched the video, I didn't get much more. However, I do know the guy behind it, and he makes great stuff. So I've given him advice to make this better.
Right. I wanted to say, though, the project image is really interesting. I'll say that this main project image is good. I could have done without the type treatment. Mm-hmm. Like I've said before, like if you scroll up to the one that this is also really nice. This project image is really, really great. I'm not a huge fan of the type treatment again, because it's like very dissonant from what the art looks like. The type is very like futuristic, whereas the image is like very kind of pastoral and more natural looking. So I think you could do without that text. You know, it looks already really interesting. Oh my gosh, there's a comet about to hit the Earth, and this lady is like in a field just watching it happen. Run, bitch! Sorry, is this a family show? Sorry.
No, you're good. You're trust me, we're under the amount of curses we normally have, so you're fine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Can you scroll up again? Sorry, do you mind?
No. Tell me.
Right here. So into the suck. Also, like, I know that it's great to tout that you've been funded in 3.5 hours, but a lot of text going on. The image is already very busy. Like, I don't know what's going on behind her, but like it kind of takes away from everything else. Like, there's just a lot of competing elements in one image. And so that's like the only feedback I'll give on that image, because you know, I'm not a huge fan of like those stickers that say funded in 3.5 hours, because usually when you are looking at Kickstarter, you can see that green bar, and that green bar tells you it's been funded. So like it's like that might be something that you want to put in a project update, but not necessarily on the image. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and also I've always said, like, why would you brag about that if you're asking more people for money? Like, you don't want to stop asking for money at this point, right? You're not done. You brag about that when you're done at the end. At the very end, when it's you funded, you go, hey guys, thanks, we funded in 3 things, and you give all the statistics at the end.
Right.
Never talk about that's like the chef in the middle of making the steak stopping and being look how good that's gonna taste. Look how good. And everyone's like, okay, can you finish cooking? You know?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to do something else, you could say stretch goals unlocked.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
that's a big one.
Yeah.
All right. So we got Red Talon 1 and 2 hybrid powered heroes and villains X-Men / Batman meets Dragon Ball Z in this fast-paced superhero action adventure hero book series Ninja Fights. I actually kind of like that because that ramps you up. You kind of get energetic about that. So let's see what they got with Red Talon. This is new to me too. I haven't seen this one.
Okay.
Just added today from our friends. Here we go.
Here's the cover for Red Talon 2. This is the very first copy that's ever been printed. If you guys decide to back this book, this is what you're going to get. 18 pages of awesome, raw, untapped comic action story. It's published through Starcross Comics. This is the second book. You can
pause.
First book.
You don't need to tell me, like, there are things that are obvious that you don't need to say, right? Like, okay, this is a comic. This is what you're going to be getting. It's issue 1 or like, I get that already. Like, what is it about? Go straight into what it is about. I like a few things in the logline: hybrid powered heroes and villains, X-Men / Batman meets Dragon Ball Z. You know, it's okay to reference things that are already kind of popular, but it's still, it's like a little all over the place. There's a lot of buzzwords here that don't give me enough. Okay, so like hybrid powered heroes. What does that mean? Does that mean that they have 2 powers each? Does that mean they're like, you know, anamorph type? Like, are they like hybrid in what way? You know, like half man, half wolf. I'm just still, there's a lot of jargon in here, but I still don't understand what's going on. You know? Does that make sense?
Sorry, I was on mute. I was like, I completely agree. And the letterboxing thing here that's unintentional, it throws me. All that wasted space. All with that space. Just because the camera was in the wrong. You know? Plus, I don't know.
I would have definitely preferred to have like a little bit more like VO over art rather than a video of him flipping through the book. Maybe he wants to say that, hey, the art is already done. It's ready to go. It's ready to hit press. But that's something you can include in the VO. And like, again, what is this about? When you are at a convention and a fan comes up to you or a potential customer comes up to you and picks up the book and starts flipping up through it, they might not ask you anything, but Like, usually if they do ask you something, it is, what is this about? What's the story about? And that's exactly the question you have to answer immediately.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's got great art, though, so that saves it. I definitely think that's enough just on its own to get people to look more. But you don't want an unprofessional video that looks like a Facebook Live. And I tell that all the time. No one wants to see a Facebook Live at this. This is a presentation. Imagine you're in front of the sharks on Shark Tank. That's what this is. Again, I could be wrong.
I think it depends on the project, right? So if this is a zine, right? If you've ever gone to Comic Arts Brooklyn or any kind of zine fair, and it's very DIY, and you know, the zine is sort of like maybe just 10 to 15 pages, and it's, you know, not necessarily linear in terms of narrative, your video can have a little bit more of a DIY element. But if you're trying to do superhero stuff, polished superhero stuff, it would be better if you had that treatment to the video as well, you know? And it doesn't necessarily need to be super professional looking. Like, you can just totally take your phone and, you know, if you have a pop socket, you prop it somewhere like right on top of the you know, you can shoot things like this. You know, you don't have to shoot things vertically. Or if you just have a laptop or an iPad, you can just sit in front of it and talk, and maybe like show some images. But like, to be honest, it's more of like what you're saying that matters even more. Like, if you don't have a lot of the technology available to you, if you don't know how to use a lot of the video editing software that's out there, like, that's okay. But where you lack in the visual department, you have to make up for it verbally. Yeah. And this person, unfortunately, it wasn't doing it for me. Like, it was a little bit like, okay, I see it, so what? You know, like.
Yeah, and I think that it's great to show that you have a comic book done, don't get me wrong, but show the whole thing. Again, that camera angle now makes it funny. We don't get to see that beautiful opening of a page, and that is so powerful. That works at a con so much. We have to just give a shout out to Lazy Fields. We don't have anything to show. No video. Sorry.
No video.
And no video for Sunny, too. And Bradley usually does really well. He's just got to be part of Caliber Comics, and he has his own charge card. So Bradley does some great stuff, but he doesn't do videos typically. I'm not sure why.
Honestly, though, but this image, I'm sorry, it's really captivating. It's like creepy. I mean, I would have preferred a full bleed, you know, like straight up to the borders. You don't necessarily need the title there either. Like, if you wanted to just like get a really close-up shot of that creepy kid behind the door, like, that is interesting. You know, that's an interesting image. It makes me want to like be like, oh, there, that's great. That's great. I really like that one.
Yeah, I knew it was different. I used their cover because I had to drag something off social media because he only went live yesterday. And a lot of times I can't use, for some reason, I can't use Kickstarter's photos on my site unless I download and upload, and I just didn't have time to download and upload. But I grabbed that off Facebook for the show, but I remember seeing the image. I thought you'd like this. This
is great. And even the logline, I issue 1 of 3, that already tells me, okay, this is going to be a miniseries. This is not a graphic novel. I get it. A demonic look-alive doll is pursuing the neighborhood children to eat their souls. Whoo, yeah, that's scary as shit. Like, okay, I'm down to read that. I'm down to read that. And the image works so well with this subtitle too. I mean, maybe a little bit more detail about like who's fighting against this demon child. That'd be interesting. Is it just going to be just a bloodbath? Or is there going to be some kind of protagonist who's like fighting this demonic doll? But you know, that's just like icing on the cake. You know, like, I would have loved that. But as it stands, this is already very strong.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. And speaking of demonic, our last Kickstarter is not a Kickstarter. It's an Indiegogo. It'll be actually the only Indiegogo video we play today because none of the other Indiegogos had a video. It's Otis Lunar Rise. maybe I'm saying there, Otes, maybe. But here we go. Let's see what it's about.
Can you make it big?
Yeah. Here we go.
Okay.
I think this is basically just showing art because the songs, yeah.
So, again, this is a little bit too much like a movie trailer. The thing that carried it through to the end for me was that the art was stunning. I don't know who Larry Holder is, and I don't know who the artist name is. Luckily, you know, the art stands on its own, that like I want to see more. But you know, when you begin a video from creators Larry Holden and I can't remember the artist's name, but like unless you are a Todd McFarlane or a Scott Snyder or like you know, trying to think of like other really big names out there, Alex Ross. There's another one who I always like fudge up, but anyway, you know what I'm saying. Like, unless you have a huge name, it doesn't really matter if you say from creators, blah blah. You know, like you have to approach a project as if nobody knows who you are, and stand on the project alone. You know, if your story is good enough, people don't really care who you are. They care that the story is good, right? So like, you got to make every second count. Because things have to be so short, and I like that this is only 1 minute and 22 seconds. You can't waste time on non-important information, or if, like I said earlier, hierarchy of information. Okay, this is the thing that I got about this is a sci-fi tale, like humanoid aliens is a classic tale of good versus evil. Okay, that's all well and good, but like, again, there's so many stories out there that are about good versus evil. What makes this one different? You know, like, I don't know about you, but I'm tired of those kinds of stories. Good versus evil, and maybe not everybody is, but I guess for what I'm trying to say is, it's not, what are the consequences? I don't understand what good and evil, a battle of good versus evil. Okay, wait, is the consequent evil wants to enslave the entire planet? Is it that it wants to destroy the entire planet? Like, you know, what's the motive here, right? Like, that's another thing that really is important to a log line. Like, you kind of have to communicate what the protagonist or antagonist wants. And if it's a group of protagonists, like if it's a kind of ensemble cast, you have to treat the ensemble cast as a single character. You know, like, it's not so much about like good versus evil, but what the conflict is. What is the thing that this person needs to overcome? You know, even if it's like a Harvey Pekar type of story where it's just a regular Joe Schmo trying to get through his day without being bothered, that guy wants to go throughout his day without being bothered, but everybody tries to bother him. That's the conflict, right? Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Even slice of life stories where nothing much happens, there is still, that doesn't mean the character doesn't have any desire.
No,
you know?
That's all great points. And that's it. We've gotten to the end of it. You've given us a lot to think about, and I think that creators. This will be one of those videos I'll refer people back to from this point on when they ask me what this show is, because I think there's a lot of great stuff for people to learn. And I'm glad, like, most of the stuff that you've said are things I said. So now I feel like I'm empowered. Now there'll be no living with me now. I'm right. I had some great people.
I was validated.
Yes. And I am so thrilled that you came on the show today. Thank you for your time. And
You're
thank
welcome.
you for all you do at Kickstarter. Do you want to tell everyone where they can follow you?
Yeah,
and
sure.
kind of, give the world a reason to where to follow you, because we already have the reasons. You've done such great stuff, but how can we follow you?
Thanks. So yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Illa the Killa. That's ILLATHEKILLA. That's my Twitter handle. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, but I usually don't use Facebook that often. And Instagram is more like cat videos. It's not as information focused as Twitter is. I use Twitter more so as a platform to disseminate information and advice where I can, and support indie creators on there. So Twitter is the best way to follow me. And yeah, like, please hit me up if you ever need advice about a campaign. Always happy to step in and offer some advice.
I want to thank you for your time one more time. That you just amazing stuff today, and it's a lot. I will be telling people to watch this one when they go, how do I make a Kickstarter? I'm gonna be like, here, start here. This will explain a lot. Eric Hawkins even says, thank you for coming on, Camilla.
Oh, yay.
Input, and he's going to be making a Kickstarter, so I'm sure he's like me, already back at the drawing board in his head. Okay, how can I make my video better? And that's what this show is about, raising the bar, guys. Independent doesn't mean less than, and you can hear my crazy kid in the background. So we're going to call it a day now. We've spent over an hour talking about some great projects. Go out there. Remember, $1 can show support, attract attention, help fund projects, and create new worlds. And thanks to Kickstarter's amazing following feature, it also shows people what you're backing. So go out there. Stay safe, wash your hands, stay home, still be the superhero in PJs, and we're going to get through this all. And thank you so much. And we'll see you on next week's Kickstarter pause with another great guest. Thank you all for paying attention and watching today. And
thank you, everyone.